said that, I must call out Anne Njeri as a fraud for what she is. She's a big fraud. And I'll tell you why, who is Anne and why Anne is a fraud. Number one, let us look at the figure in dispute, 17 billion worth of fuel. In this current regime, we have a shortage of dollar. Okay? Now, if you convert 17 billion Kenya shillings into dollar, you are unlikely, and the reason why government got into government-to-government framework was because we were having a run on the dollar, where under the OTS system, open tender system, if an OMC was given a tender, they would be going all over the banks looking for dollar. And that was creating some kind of pressure on the dollar. And government decided to alleviate that, not to necessarily, you know, it's just temporary, and do that 6 months renewable under the government-to-government deal. So getting an equivalent of 17 billion Kenya shillings in dollar in Kenyan banks today is impractical and is almost impossible. In fact, I tell you, Simba, if she went to a local bank to look for 17 billion Kenya shillings, it would raise eyebrows not just with the CBK, but also with the Financial Reporting Center, which we have in Kenya, okay? Secondly, she's saying that the fuel belongs to her. Maybe yes, maybe not, but I'll tell you why that's a fraud also. When you import fuel under a credit line, and the bank will give you letters of credit. Now, against letters of credit, you will get a bill of lading from the supplier. Yes. Okay? Now, when you get a bill of lading, the bank will only pay the supplier, and I want you to get this very clearly, once against documents. So when the ship docks, and an SGS report is done, and a deep test verifies that the fuel subscribes to the Kenyan standards of fuel, is only when the bank will pay. So that means there should even be no dispute of who the fuel belongs to, because one, the bill of lading is clear. Okay. Second, from where you got lines from your bank, the bank knows that this is your fuel. Lastly, why Anne Njeri is a fraud, she says she started this business in 2009. You know, sometimes Kenyans, because of politics, we are treated to a lot of charade and gimmicks that we get lost in the bigger picture. She says she started business of fuel in 2009.
How old was she?
Now, I'm even not worried about how old she was. But she says in her own statement, which is very peculiar after being kidnapped for a whole week, you can talk like a tape recorder. She says that the ministry informed her that she must get licenses in order for her to trade in fuel. That was last week. Now, we all know, those of us who have traded in fuel, you cannot trade in fuel in Kenya without an EPRA license. That's true. Either as an OMC, as an exporter, or a retailer. You must get licensing from EPRA. Now, Simba, how do you commit 17 billion Kenya shillings? Which bank will give you letters of credit? Which bank will give you a facility of 17 billion Kenya shillings without trading license from EPRA? There is no bank that will do that. In fact, when you go to a bank and you want to open an account to trade in fuel, the first thing they ask you is an EPRA license. So Madam says she has committed 17 billion Kenya shillings. And you know, sometimes we say 17 billion, we imagine it's ugali. 17 billion is a lot of money, Ragalo. Counties' annual budget, there are counties that don't get to 17 billion. So it's a lot of money. So Anne Njeri, the fraudster, goes and invests 17 billion, knowing very well she doesn't have a license. Now, the question is this that Kenyans should get answers. Who is sponsoring Anne Njeri? Why is she on our headlines? What is she supposed to achieve? Yes. Who is this that is sponsoring her headlines to be on? And Nation, by the way, a local newspaper has done investigations. Her offices don't exist. Calls her Anne Dubai. It doesn't even say she does fuel. The one of the numbers says Anne Dubai. That is the only relationship between her and Dubai and the fuel. And therefore it is to say, Kenyans, let us not be gullible. Let us not be taken round in circles on someone imported cheap fuel, or Anne Njeri Njoroge should be called out for what she is,
yes,
a fraudster, a common 21st century fraudster.
Yes.
Period.
Is it not then her not to be called out, but for the person who's sponsoring her to be called out, Mr. Mungai?
And that's my question. Yes, and that's my question.
Yes.
Who exactly is sponsoring Anne Njeri Njoroge?
Yes.
Could it be Azimio? Hey. Because remember, because remember, Baba has promised a dossier next week on this issue of fuel. So it